Today on Classroom Dynamics.
When I talk to parents, I tell them that when you give your child an iPad or a smartphone with access to the internet, you don't give the internet to your kid. You give your kid to the internet.
Hmm.
Okay? We failed this generation by letting it get to this point.
Welcome to the place where ideas collide. Adam Todd's here to be your guide. For teachers and techies, chasing the spark. Classroom dynamics, where we leave our mark. Let's dive in deep, the future's bright. Innovation shines like morning light. Teachers and tech, hand in hand we go. Welcome to the Classroom Dynamics Show.
Classroom Dynamics is sponsored in part by Logitech Education, empowering student voice and creativity with innovative tools like the Logitech Reach Adjustable Content Camera and the Zone Learn headset designed specifically for student comfort and focus. Discover how Logitech is transforming classrooms at logitech.com/education. Welcome to Classroom Dynamics, the podcast where we unlock the future of education. Hi everybody, I'm your host Adam Todd, and on the show today, we're diving deep into the power of performance with Jeremy Rubenstein, founder and creative director of Box Out Bullying. Since 2008, Jeremy's theatrical assemblies and workshops have empowered millions across the country to foster empathy, inclusion, and respect. From the classroom to the stage, his team brings unforgettable stories to life that don't just inform, they change school culture. Get ready to rethink bullying prevention and discover what it really means to build a kinder, stronger community. And it's all coming up next on Classroom Dynamics, so don't go anywhere. We'll be right back. Classroom Dynamics is supported by Higher Ground Gear, featuring the Shuttle 3.0 CS laptop case. Built for students on the move, the Shuttle 3.0 offers 24/7 protection by letting you work directly out of the case. Just open it and go. Its sleek molded design keeps laptops cool, secure, and always ready. And with shock-absorbing corners for drop defense, a grip deck, corner straps to hold your device in place, and clean shell fabric that resists spills and wipes down easily to fight germs, it's protection that never quits. For more, visit hggear.com today.
Behind every successful student is a teacher who feels supported. At Catapult Learning, we partner with educators through coaching, collaborative professional development, and classroom-proven tools. Our programs aren't just theory. They're actionable, relevant, and built to make your daily work easier and more effective. With 45 years of evidence-based success, Catapult provides the guidance and resources that help educators grow so students thrive. Catapult Learning, empowering teachers, inspiring futures. Learn more at catapultlearning.com.
Joining us today is Jeremy Rubenstein, founder of Box Out Bullying, a national leader in using interactive theater to transform school culture. From classrooms to auditoriums, he and his team work to empower students and educators to build communities rooted deep in empathy and respect. So, Jeremy, welcome to Classroom Dynamics. So great to have you on today.
Great to be here, Adam. Thank you for having me.
So, Jeremy, let's start with the fact that everything has a story, right? There's always a story behind everything, no matter what people do. You've been using interactive theater to address bullying since 2008. What inspired you to combine performance with education in this particular manner?
Yeah. So, there's definitely, like you said, a story behind this. And I've always been somebody that loved performing and loved teaching to the point where I majored in it. So I went to Penn State for theater. And what I loved about going to Penn State was, I went to, my graduating class was about 12, if I can remember that, But
That's amazing.
You're telling me, right? So I get this small,
Just 12.
well, the thing is, we started out with 14, and then
Wow.
things people decide to switch or they get cut. But
Yeah.
so it's one of these things where you get all the benefits of a huge university, but it's like a small liberal arts one-on-one. Like, I knew all of my professors, and it was that kind of relationship that I think what inspired me to do this. There are those educators that you always remember and that kind of guide you on this path. And one of them for me was a professor named Mark Olson. He was a movement teacher. He was a director of mine, and then he became my advisor. And he told me, Jeremy, you have a director's eye, which basically meant I'm a bad actor, So, and I knew it, like I'm 6'2". They would always cast me as either the villain or because I was the tallest one there. And again, I didn't have much competition, 14 people.
Right.
But I was a comedian, I was goofy, I lanky. So I studied mime with Mark. And then he told me, you need to study at the Celebration Barn Theater in South Paris, Maine. And I did because he was my advisor, listened to him. So I studied something called eccentric performance with Avner Eisenberg, and he's still a dear friend to this day. So I learned about vaudeville and clowning and getting the audience to breathe. And it's all about that connection you have with the audience, which is what empathy is all about. I'm sure as a teacher, like you need to have that connection with students. You need to reach them in their hearts to reach them in their minds. So I really picked up a lot from that workshop there and highly recommend. I'm not being sponsored. Celebration Barn, check it out. So after college, I got lucky. I had low expectations, Adam. I just wanted to be a working actor. And I got lucky enough that I was, so I summer stock in Vermont, regional theater shows. I have an IMDb page, so a couple of feature films that I was in. I got cast, and this is what kind of turned me into this trajectory of educational theater. So I was cast in this national touring juggling show, not knowing originally how to juggle. Now, in the audition, it was, I think, at Ripley Greer Studios in New York. On my resume, I put I could juggle, which you look like if you can catch 5 times, put it on your resume. That's what I was told at the Celebration Barn. I could do that balls easy. They bring out clubs, they bring out rings, and they're like, go. And I pick up the clubs, never touching them before, and I drop them instantly. And I just remember making like a clown routine out of it. Like,
Right.
got to pick them up, got to try it again. And I kind of won them over with the humor. And then they're like, we'll work with you. So they matched me up with a guy named Michael Karras, who, and I didn't know this, but jugglers are ranked. So he was, ranked in the top 20 in the world.
Wow.
A co-actor. So we would nerd out in these hotel rooms, just practicing juggling all the time. And I became very good at juggling. To this day, if you give me 3 of something, I'm pretty good at it. But what I got from there, so my character was the coach of the U.S. Olympic juggling team. And it was a nutrition show where we went into schools across the Northeast, teaching kids how to balance a healthy diet, like you're juggling different foods.
Right.
And being in those schools every day, I saw how much theater could do. The way kids responded, the way they were engaged, the message that we had landed. And I just remember thinking, you know what, forget about the self-serving career, getting kids to actually get the message. This is it. This is what I want to do. So my contract ends with them. And that summer, I get cast in something called The Aluminum Show. And so big physical theater piece, not theater for young audiences at all. It's like Blue Man Group meets Stomp. They made their American debut. The cool thing is they came back. We made the American debut in 2007, summer of 2007, and they finally came back, and I got to bring my son to see the show, which was very cool. And it's changed a lot. It's kid friendly now. I was in the Trump Plaza Casino in Atlantic City, and I got really close with the tech crew of the plaza. And a man named Eddie Britton, he ran sound. But, when I wasn't on, I was just hanging out with him. And I told him, hey, I got this idea for this school show. And he says, when you're ready, I'm here to help you. So let's build it. And he was the one that built the original box in Box Out Bullying, which is essentially this vaudeville trunk show. And inside this specially constructed box is the answer that's going to solve all bullying, but it's locked. And the only way to open it is when the audience finds out, I'm not going to tell you what it is, but, or what the answer to bullying is, but just to have Eddie there, I wouldn't have a show without him. And if you're listening to this, Eddie, thank you. 20 years later, he's still with me, and he just finished constructing another box that we're flying out. So yeah, so wonderful connection. Wouldn't be able to do the show without him. But it was another gift the Aluminum Show gave me, is I realized I couldn't function in somebody else's reality, right? I didn't want to spend my life waiting for somebody to cast me or give me permission to do what I was good at. I needed to build something that was mine. And it took me a while to figure that out. So in that time, I went back to teaching. So I went back to the classroom, come from a family of educators, and that pull never went away. And then it was that fall. I was teaching in the school district of Lancaster in Pennsylvania, and that's where I really saw this gap. Reading, writing, arithmetic's covered. How to be a good friend, how to show empathy, social emotional learning. That wasn't, nobody even talked about that back then, right? So it wasn't just like that, but even in the conferences that I would go to as an academic, right? Breakout sessions on bullying prevention. And I'll never forget that like presenters wouldn't agree on what bullying was. So I'm thinking, how can we solve this problem if we don't know what this problem is? So that's when I thought, okay, look, there were times I had to spend entire class periods out of my lesson plans. And this was before smartphones, but still, like the issues and concerns of my students, of what happened at the playground, what happened at lunch, bringing them back into my classroom, that it was now
it's exhausting, right?
Exhausting. Yeah. So I thought, you know what? I got to do something about this. And I use the skill sets that I have, where I'm an educator, I'm a performer, studied clowning, mime, have these degrees in journalism. So, that's what I did. I researched. So I was trying to come up with like a topic. And I remember at the time, I was researching where like a lot of the federal grant funding was going to. At the time, number one was nutrition, which I couldn't do. I signed a non-compete with this other company. Okay. Number two was, remember the DARE program?
Yes.
Okay. Distant memory. They've now defunded that. They actually found that increased students using drugs because it kind of exposed them to them. So, good intentioned, I guess. But I remember reading like number three was something called character education. And I didn't really know what that was, but I decided to use the topic of bullying because I felt like that's something that everybody either has a story with, either they've experienced it, witnessed it, or partook in it. And I figured that's something that could really impact kids. And in addition to the research, I sought out like the experts in the field, right? So I used the right pedagogy, making sure that we focus on not giving labels, but the action, which can be corrected, okay? Especially like with this emphasis on the bystander empowerment. And that's what led to box out bullying. So when we talk about boxing out, it's a couple things. So one, there's an actual physical box. Two, it's a basketball term. When you try to box somebody out, I'm tall, I like basketball. When you box somebody out, you're trying to prevent your opponent from getting into the key, getting a rebound or making a layup. And I remember as an educator, when I would go like on recess duty and I would see students kind of circle up. And especially for new kids, when they wanted to like join in, it's almost like these kids were like boxing them out of like being part of the school community. So when we talk about box out bullying, we are trying to prevent bullying from attaining its goal of making school less fun and joyful and safe. So, I think what I really wanted to do was create something that kids would actually remember. Something that schools could build on, because the presentation, the assembly, that's just the spark. And I think the real impact happens after, when schools keep the conversation going. We give schools tools, the resources, language. So that's always been the point.
So let's get into the assemblies now and those workshops that you do. You connect with such a wide audience, from elementary all the way up, such a range of students and ages, and even school communities. How do they accept you guys? When you guys are up there and there's your show, you're going through it. What kind of feedback do you get from them as the show is happening?
Yeah. So look, it's like that elevator pitch, right? So you have like the first 5-15, it's almost like auditioning, where you already know as soon as you walk into the room if you got the part or not, So like right off the bat, it's important to get that attention and make sure that they are engaged. So instantly it starts out with that laugh. And I think, as you'd mentioned, with the audience ages and communities, this is probably one of the favorite things that I'm most proud of. Is that one of the keys to success is making all of our services age appropriate, making sure that it doesn't matter if we're delivering a show in Brooklyn or Crossville, Tennessee, or San Leandro, California, that it's always a home run each time.
Right, because the theme of bullying is not changing really. right? The meaning behind it and what happens when kids are bullied. That's almost a worldwide kind of scenario.
Yeah, the issues and concerns facing students are absolutely the same. But I
Hmm.
think the important thing is knowing, like, the audience that you're serving.
Right.
So,
Right.
I'll admit we haven't presented our services at your school yet. But I mean, in your experience, have you been to like assemblies where maybe a presenter clearly has no idea like who they're talking to?
Oh yeah, for sure it happens.
And look, as an educator myself, my lesson plan is very different for a fifth grader than a 5-year-old,
A
right?
100%, right?
So when we design everything to be age appropriate, we have like lower level elementary, upper level elementary, middle school, junior high school. And what we do for lower level elementary is very different than what we do for like 3 through 5. Younger kids, it's kinesthetic, call and response, very physical, very visual, bold characters, because we're dealing with like little minds, right? K to
Right.
2. That my background is in early childhood education. So it's all about modeling behaviors in the way that they can see and feel. So it's not about talking, but more showing them. Make them laugh, because if they're laughing, then they're listening. And then when that's down, that's when we can impart some messages. Upper level elementary, that's much more mature. We can do a lot of improv audience participation, calling them up on stage. You're testing boundaries, maybe you've been online for like a year. You're aware of social dynamics. So you can be a little bit more sarcastic. It's still fun, still funny,
But
but
they get it at least.
they get it. And it's for the younger ones, it's definitely more about, the difference between telling versus tattling. What empathy looks like, is very different than like what a third and fourth grade would do, especially the role of the bystander. A middle school audience. Now, middle schools, they just need truth, all right? They can smell fake a mile away. So,
Hmm.
we meet them where they are. We acknowledge their reality. We make it smart to play to your highest intelligence level. And we give them credit. Middle school students, they want to talk about identity, reputation. So we talk about all of it without sugarcoating things, right?
Let's get into empathy with that because, and we touched upon this already, social emotional learning is a big focus in schools today. So, what do you think makes that message about empathy or inclusion truly stick with the students afterwards, after that assembly ends? What makes that stick for them?
Yeah. So you can be on a stage, you can say the word empathy all day, but if the kids don't feel it, it doesn't land, right? And for box out bullying, what we do, what makes it stick is it's the emotional experience. That's the difference. Okay. You have to create a moment, not just pass on information. So like Adam, I'd like to ask you, do you remember any assemblies from when you were in school that actually stick with you? Like,
I
like you still think about it.
I can't say when I was a kid, I can't say I really do, to be honest with you. I remember going to assemblies, but now that you mention it, I don't know if I actually can tell you an exact particular topic or assembly that we had as a kid. I really can't.
Yeah. So a couple of things. Absolutely. We need what we specialize in is making things interactive. You're engaging all modalities of learning. So it doesn't matter for us if you're an auditory, a visual, or a kinesthetic learner. Making things interactive, you get the best results for message retention. But so there was this one time we were presenting a show, and we had this was 2010, and I still remember this. Again, I'm an adult, and
Mm.
so a school booked us, Box Out Bullying, and a presenter named John Halligan. And John Halligan was a middle school, and he has a very powerful assembly where he talks about, as a father, how he lost his son because he committed suicide due to a bullying instance. Now, I'll have a little disclaimer. It would be a misdirection to say that bullying and suicide are equal. They are not. Bullying is a societal problem. Suicide is a mental health problem. And not everybody who's been bullied commits suicide. Not everybody who commits suicide has been bullied, though in this case it was.
Mm.
I remember I had the opportunity to see him, and you could hear a pin drop. It was so that like he made you feel the angst and the heartbreak. So what they did is they split shows up. So half the people saw our show first, which was, fun and interactive. Then they went to see him. And now we have his audience coming in, and it's almost like everybody's just got done watching Schindler's List. They are not in
Mm.
the mood for laughing, so then we go out like, who wants to laugh? It did not, wasn't one of our best shows because we had to kind of warm them up, but it was still that way of presenting that information, right? For us, we use humor, get the kids to laugh, get them to relax, their walls drop, and then they are able to slip in some meaning, something that they might not expect, okay? And I think the other thing is what we do is we show characters who screw up, right? You might hurt somebody unintentionally. And, we model what accountability looks like, what ownership looks like, because empathy grows in those moments when you realize like, ooh, yeah, I never thought about it like that before, And that's what interactive theater does best, I think, than anything else. It makes you feel something. And when students feel the message, it sticks way longer than just like a slide deck or a handout.
Right. Well, we're going to take a quick break. And when we come back, we're going to explore how technology is now playing a role with bullying. We're just getting started. More with Jeremy Rubenstein right after this, so stay with us. Tired of drowning in paperwork? With Your Way Learning's AI-powered platform, you can automate lesson planning, grading, and parent communications while keeping you at the center. Our built-in chat assistant Beans helps craft differentiated, standards-aligned material in seconds. Fully customizable and grounded in learning science, Your Way saves time and deepens student engagement. Teach your way. For more, visit yourwaylearning.com. Teachers, podcasters, and classroom creators, take your content to the next level with Logitech Education. Whether you're recording a student-led podcast, creating engaging lesson videos, or producing professional quality classroom content, Logitech has the tools you need. With crystal clear cameras, studio quality microphones, perfect lighting solutions, and seamless editing gear, their full portfolio of content creation solutions empowers educators and inspires students. Bring professional-grade production into your classroom today. Visit logitech.com/education to learn more. Welcome back to Classroom Dynamics, where today we're speaking with Jeremy Rubenstein of Box Out Bullying. With so much of students' social lives happening online these days, how has the rise of digital platforms changed that landscape of bullying that then takes place, not just only in schools like we're used to seeing and that we still do see, but now also online?
Oh man, Adam, it's changed everything. I remember when I was in school, right? Back definitely in the BC before Corona, but that's when the dial-up was there. It's like, it used to end when you left the building, follows kids home, into their bedrooms, into their phones. It's 24/7. There's no break. It's like there's no off switch. And, when I talk to parents, I tell them that when you give your child an iPad or a smartphone with access to the internet, you don't give the internet to your kid. You give your kid to the internet. And I think we failed this generation by letting it get to this point. When we talk to parents, because, parents are still superheroes at this point. Children are going to mimic those that they love. We don't dance around it. We stay straight up. Social media and smartphones are toxic when it comes to teaching empathy, compassion, and care. And there's real data with Dr. Jonathan Haidt. So what we do is we show the parents his incredible research on how front-facing smartphone cameras, social media platforms, which started to really proliferate around 2012. Since then, we've seen a generation that's more anxious, isolated, more depressed, and really not as smart as previous generations, looking at standardized testing, especially with underserved communities. But everybody is struggling academically and emotionally, and this is not a coincidence. And I think what we've done as parents is we've overprotected them in real life and underprotected them online.
Yes.
Where we've locked down playgrounds but handed them TikTok at age 9, right? So you're giving a supercomputer to somebody whose brain isn't developed yet. And it's tough for them to think, is it true? Is it helpful? Is it inspiring? Is it necessary? Is it kind? Before they click, right?
Yeah.
So, we really have to take a strong stance. And Jonathan Haidt has these 4 agreements: no smartphones before high school, no social media before 16, push back on edutech that replaces real world learning, and building communities where kids have real life experiences, not just screen time.
Right. No, I agree. No, it's really important that you said that, because I think that really is the case. We had Dr. Marianne Wolf on our show a while back talking about the science of reading and the impact of technology on just how kids learn to read. And you just said it, their brains aren't developed in that manner yet. As an adult, we can go to that that technology because we've already done that the other way. For kids, ages 0 through 8, it's almost like imperative that they don't use it and integrate their lives with it, because that combination just does not work. And you're right, we do see that, especially with the behavior. Kids, snapping a lot easier, quicker. They're not as emotionally sensitive to what's around them. So yeah, you hit it on the head.
Yeah, so, and I'll share with you this story. I was presenting a parent workshop in Manhattan, and during one of the sessions, during our breakouts, one of the members, the parents in the audience, said, one of my cousins is a TikTok influencer, and that's her full-time job. And they found out that their algorithm, they will intentionally, when they make a video, will screw something up on purpose. And I remember saying, why? They said, well, because that's going to flood the comments. And then that arguing with people, that's people trying to correct each other, that's going to drive up views. And that hate and that engagement, that makes the algorithm go viral. So in that landscape, these platforms, they reward division. And it's not designed to foster empathy. It's designed to kind of trigger outrage, like you said, to like snap like that, right?
Yeah.
And it's not just social media. Just think about online gaming, especially with like young boys. It's in my day, if you wanted to play, you go to somebody's house on the console, right? Now
Right.
you have to sit at home, you have your own consoles, you're isolated from each other, even play is being pulled apart. So when we talk about bullying today, we're not just talking about kids being mean, we're talking about a system that's set up to disconnect them. That's why I guess Box Out Bullying, we just don't do assemblies. We work with schools, we work with parents, we give them tools, some strategies, language to reclaim real life. And I think to try to, when we need to, it's not just us, but we got to get this movement involved to push back on this toxic digital culture. Because
Yeah. It's funny, I don't mean to interrupt, but I was just going to actually ask you about that in terms of how has Box Out Bullying accepted that role in expanding its own reach because of the impact of social media and technology, especially the last couple of years. I think it's actually, the trend probably has skyrocketed in terms of online bullying, online issues, just because more and more people are finding these devices in their own hands, especially youngsters.
Yeah, it's funny. Like we just spent the last question talking about limiting tech in schools. So now we're talking about how we use it. So I guess here's the difference. We use tech with intention. Okay. So when COVID hit, we had to adapt. Right. So we built out our parent workshops to run virtually, starting doing Zoom sessions. We created digital resources for schools. We developed on-demand professional development for faculty. And that's been a game changer, especially for these rural districts that don't always have access to this kind of work or services. But, when it comes to the assembly, that's kind of the spark of what we do. That has to be live. So
Yeah.
there is no substitute. When people were coming to me saying, do you have anything virtual? And I specifically said, we have to shutter because I didn't want to give a subpar product, right? They need to feel the room, the eye contact, the comedy. That's what makes it stick. So
I was going to say the impact is not the same, obviously.
nope. And I remember they were encouraging like artists to kind of, adapt to this, but it wasn't the same results. Yeah. But, outside of that, so we started to use platforms like TikTok and YouTube, not as the main event, but to try to keep the energy going. We just started the TikTok this season where we're going to have 1,700 followers. People keep on saying, you come to my school, tagging friends. This is what the show is about, that kind of community, right?
Right. Well, use it in a positive way, right? Because you're showcasing using the technology because you want to get that message out to make sure that kids understand and parents and teachers understand that bullying is still a huge problem, if not bigger than it used to be in the 80s and 90s for those teachers and parents that were growing up at that time.
And here's the other thing. When I'm still hopeful because 80s and 90s, like I said, like bullying was a whisper. It was kids will be kids. It's a part of the experience. But now it's a roar where, New Jersey, they were the first state in 2010 to have like October's Bullying Prevention Month. They have the Week of Respect. New York City has Respect for All Week. So it's part of the conversation now. But I think the misdirection is now everything is bullying, right? Where, there are going to be times when a child will call another child a bad name, which is unkind, but that's not bullying. Or when a child might exclude somebody. Again, unkind, but that's not bullying. Where it's important, and this is one of our main messages, and the educators love it, the differences between bullying and conflict.
Hmm.
You need to have different approaches to this as well. Yeah.
That's where your social emotional learning comes into play. Because I even have kids come up to me and say, he's bullying me, and I'll say, well, what did he do? Well, he gave me a dirty look, and I said, well, it's not really bullying. That he's just giving you a dirty look. He's not being nice. We'll talk to him, but that's not really. So I also think that the misunderstanding of what bullying is, even to kids experiencing what they think is bullying when it may not be, is also another issue that adults and teachers and parents have to deal with as well.
Oh, sure. Yeah. I think one of our best parent workshops is just being able to let them know the difference, because they are the ones teaching the kids, and it's important as educators to do that. What we found that to really work well in the classrooms for those is we introduced something called a peace table during like our residencies, which is like the calculus of peer mediation, where it's economical, it's effective. I used it when I was teaching, and if done with fidelity, it's going to help like get you as a teacher, go back to teaching and give students a space to self-awareness, self-management, responsible decision-making, all 5 core competencies there too. It's one-on-one, doesn't involve like a third person. And it's great to like, you gave me a bad look, that gave me a bad feeling, and I didn't appreciate that. Look why they did that too. So,
Right.
yeah, and here's the thing. I think conflicts are a Buddha's gift. It allows somebody to let somebody know, hey, this needs to change, or I'm not okay with this situation. It allows people to really come closer. Peace table will not work for bullying. You need to have a positive relationship in order to like come to it together. But, like you were saying, it's extremely important that as educators, one of our main thesis statements is making sure that every student will leave knowing the difference between acts of bullying versus acts of conflict and what that looks like.
That's awesome. We're going to take another quick break, and when we come back, we're going to wrap things up with Jeremy Rubenstein. So don't go anywhere. We'll be right back right after this. Are you juggling lesson planning, grading, and keeping students engaged, all while running out of hours in the day? If so, Brisk is here to help. Brisk is an AI-powered education platform that supports teachers, students, and schools at every stage, from planning and instruction to feedback and practice. The best part? Brisk works wherever you are. The Brisk extension brings support into the tools that you already use, and the new Brisk Next web experience gives you a hub for planning, bundling resources, and sharing assignments with ease. With Brisk Boost, safe AI for students, you can create interactive charts like debates, exit tickets, and character conversations that deepen learning. Ready to try Brisk? Go to briskteaching.com, click the Get Started button, and install the extension. Plus, enjoy 3 months of premium features free at brisk-teaching.com/Adam-Todd today.
Looking to spark excitement in your classroom and save time? Head over to Highly Motivated on Teachers Pay Teachers. From engaging lesson plans to creative lap books and test prep tools, these resources are designed to inspire learning and take the planning stress off your plate. Highly Motivated, motivating teaching resources that engage and inspire. For more, search Highly Motivated on Teachers Pay Teachers today.
We've talked a lot about bullying today. What can schools do now beyond assemblies to maintain that culture of kindness, that empathy, that respect throughout the course of the year? And what are some strategies that you can offer to educators who are doing this every day?
Sure. So, I can say that coming from a family of educators, they aren't doing this for the money. They aren't doing it for the hours. They're doing this because they have the passion and the love of this. This is like that passion project, right? So let me just say up front, it's not just on schools. Kids model what they see and they mimic those that they love. So if we're serious about changing school culture, we need more family involvement, period. Okay. And I think if there's usually the principal sets the tone of the school. And this, whenever we kind of go out, like the large, parent turnouts, usually it's that relationship that the principal has with with the parents there. And I mean, look, a child doesn't stand a chance in school if they're going home to 8 hours of TikTok, a gaming console in their bedroom, and parents that are just too afraid to take those things away, right?
The digital babysitter.
Yeah, exactly. Oh my gosh. So I just finished up a residency in San Leandro, like after their spring break. So one of the parents came up to me like afterwards and said, like during the break, I gave my kid an Oculus, so I have strict limits on that. Other parents, they just have the kids on all the time, and it's like it's a terrible babysitter.
Hmm.
It's like a drug dealer, right?
Yeah.
uh, because we need parents to take responsibility. We say in our workshops, trying to set up a parental control on things. Those don't work. Tech limits don't work. Kids are smart, and if there's one thing that they will do is try to find a way around it, right? You can't compete with this algorithm. So that's why what can they do? Really step it up. No smartphones before high school, no social media before 16, push back on edutech, back to books and pencils, and use that money to hire more teachers, more counselors, people that will love you students, right? Replace online. Here's the thing: if you're going to take these online things away, you have to replace it with real life experiences, and that's what's important. So, you know what? And I'll tell you something else. I love that New York City is banning smartphones during school hours. Okay, that's a huge
Yeah, that's
step.
coming up. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
coming up.
So I was just at a workshop in Brooklyn, and the counselor told me that so at the school they banned it, right? But now it's going to be law. And since they banned it at the school, she's seen fewer failing rates. Kids are actually smiling in the hallways again. They're talking to each other. Grades are up. Energy is different.
They've come
So
out of the coma, right?
yeah,
The
they come
digital
out.
coma that they were in.
So you know what? I'll give another example. So if you look at Sweden, their minister of education, they saw the same thing that we're seeing with the data. Kids are performing worse, they're feeling more isolated, they're getting less connected, and there's data to show that. So they banned computers and smartphones in school, right? And when I say computers, and like other schools, they kind of give like one-on-one, like everybody gets an iPad or everybody gets this. Nope. What they did is no more personal laptops, no smart boards, pencil, paper, back to connection. And guess what? Test scores are up. Student happiness went up. And you know what they did with all that money? They hired more teachers. They hired more counselors. And I'll tell you, if there's one thing that Swedes don't like to be known for is people that are kind of backwards, so to speak. But this worked for them because at the end of the day, I don't think kids need more screens. They need more adults who love them.
Yeah.
So
The screens will come. The screens will come.
mhm. Yeah.
Jeremy, listen, this has been an amazing conversation. I want to thank you for the time and for that ability to shed the light on how we as educators all over the world can really tackle bullying through theater, through empathy, education, humor, all the things that you mentioned today. Before we go, please tell everyone where they can go to find out more about Box Out Bullying.
Absolutely. You can visit us at boxoutbullying.com. And if you're on social media, you can find us at boxoutbullying.
Well, for those of you who have been listening, thank you for tuning in today, and make sure that you share what you've learned or any takeaways or reflections that you've had. And please tag us on X at Class Dynamics or Instagram at Classroom Dynamics Podcast. You can also find out all of our links, including information about our sponsors, on our link tree at Classroom Dynamics. We always look forward to hearing your thoughts on our episodes and sharing the different ways in which you're using what you've learned, just like today, and bullying. You can also help support Classroom Dynamics with as little as $3 a month at classroomdynamicspodcast.buzzsprout.com. Once again, I'd like to thank Jeremy Rubenstein for joining us today on Classroom Dynamics. Thank you for the time, amazing information, great story, and a fantastic program that's helping not only the adults, but the kids as well. So thank you so much.
Thanks again, Adam. It's been a blast.
Well, that's a wrap on this episode of Classroom Dynamics. I hope today's conversation sparked something meaningful for you, maybe a new idea, a fresh perspective, or just a little boost of motivation to take back to your classroom. Remember, it's never too late to strengthen your craft, and if there's ever a moment to re-energize your work, why not make it today? I'm Adam Todd, and you've been listening to Classroom Dynamics, a teacher podcast. Follow us on X at Class Dynamics and on Instagram at Classroom Dynamics Podcast. If you haven't already, go to your favorite podcast platform like Apple Podcasts or Spotify and subscribe, rate, and review this podcast. We'll be back soon with more captivating conversations, inspiring stories, and strategies that you can implement into your everyday routines. Until then, keep that spark alive and never underestimate the incredible impact you have as an educator. You're more powerful and inspirational than you think. Did you miss how first-year Michigan math teacher Josh Pullen turned 2 weeks of seating chart frustration into Shuffle Buddy, the viral app now helping tens of thousands of teachers? If so, catch his story where teacher-made solutions inspire classrooms everywhere.
These videos are not particularly entertaining. Like, it's just me showing a thing and teachers recognizing like, oh, I need that. That's gonna help me.
Right.
And so I think the product and the fact that it's solving a real need for people does all the heavy lifting. And so, I don't have to be a real great entertainer to just show the product and say, look, I made this for you.